Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Ricky Moody. Can you hear me good? Because I've been having problems with my microphone. So if you can hear me, Ricky, can you let me know?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, good, good. Yes, yes. So how are you doing today?
I am okay. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue our series with street drugs, myths, and truths. We have Ricky Moody here. He's our guest presenter, the specialist that is going to bring us the facts. We're going to have a little piece in here that you can ask your questions and you will be able to get your answers. There's also going to be a piece in here that you'll be able to, his contact information will be available just in case if you wanted to ask questions that you think about later on, or if you think about that you don't want to share right now. His information will be available. And again, Ricky Moody, thank you so much for joining us for this series of street drugs, myths, and truths. And so last week, and just to get right into it, first of all, I want to, make sure, how are you? Do you have your water? You have everything that you need? This is literally just a
Yeah, I think
conversation.
I think I'm good. Yeah, I do have my water.
Okay. Okay, good, good. Because what I want everybody to know that's watching, I want everyone to know that this is a conversation with you and I. This is a conversation with our community. This is a conversation that we, everyone can be involved in. And so, last week or the week before, I'm sorry, because last week I was in Jamaica, but the week before, as we were talking and you shared all the information pertaining to opioids, we hung up, and we unfortunately we had lost Michael Williams during our segment. Well, before our segment, and I just wanted to, take a moment of silence for that, for him and all of his work and the information that you were sharing, basically on exactly, what happened to our friend Michael Williams. So we'll take a 30-second moment of silence for him. Okay, and thank you for that. And so, Ricky, this week, last week we talked about opioids. You gave us the facts, you gave us the statistics, you gave us the numbers on opioids. This week we're going to talk about stimulants. And, I'm not going to say what stimulants it is. Share with us what exactly is stimulants.
Sure. So stimulants are drugs that are made to increase the activity of your central nervous system. So stimulants right now are showcasing themselves in two different categories: the prescription stimulants or the stimulants you find on the streets. So when we speak about that actor, Michael, who just passed away, I read, I think about 25 minutes ago, that he passed away from a combination of heroin, which is an opioid, and crack cocaine, which is a stimulant, and on the street that's called a speedball.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's a common concoction out on the streets right now. So he actually passed away from the combination of a stimulant and an opioid. But stimulants right now are crack cocaine. We see that a lot on the streets. We see crystal methamphetamine. We see codeine. We see different over-the-counter products with codeine and cough syrups, and they're mixing that with different products. We see stimulants show up in Adderall. That's a prescription for individuals who have ADHD, particularly children. We see
Mhm.
Vyvanse, which is a popular for people with ADHD, and see lots of combination with other things, but primarily that would be the stimulant that, for the sake of this conversation, they're well known or not well known. But the sake of this conversation is that we're highlighting some of those things about these products.
Okay. Now, before we go, you're going in and out a little bit. Can you adjust your system? Because I want to make sure that everybody gets everything that you are saying. You're going out with your voice in and out just a little bit.
Okay.
Say so. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, good, good. Now, because I know that you mentioned crack cocaine, and I want to make sure that we are
Hmm.
making sure that everyone knows exactly what we're talking about. You're also pertaining to cocaine, crack cocaine, crystal meth, and the other variants ones that you spoke about. Now, you did touch on that is
Right.
something to stimulate to stimulate someone. Explain to us in short in layman's term exactly what they do.
Okay, so let me know if I'm having technical difficulties. I thought I
You
cleared
sound
up, but
perfect.
hopefully
You
I'm
sound
good.
perfect. You
Okay.
sound perfect.
Yeah, sometimes it's okay. So stimulants in this regard would be a substance that's turning up your ability to focus, to move faster, to speed up your performance, and to hone in on exactly what you want to do. So oftentimes individuals will take a stimulant and abuse it because they may want to focus in on a new phenomenon, actually, which is what we're seeing in college campuses. And we're seeing individuals take Adderall at higher
Mhm.
dosages than what they were prescribed, really getting it off people, even though it's not their prescription, because they want to focus on writing a 50-page paper in one night, or they want to focus on, and I hear this a lot too, they want to clean their house that one good time, they want to clean out their garage, and they're taking an Adderall or a couple of Adderalls to get the job done, because you can focus and you can really speed up your performance. It also has a euphoric effect, meaning crystal methamphetamine, crack cocaine, powder form cocaine, these things make you feel really good. A lot of individuals are socially awkward. They may not be, life of the party. If you take a stimulant, a lot of times confidence is created. You are more willing to show up in a different way and really be a different form of what you want to, a different form of yourself. You're heightened. It brings more out of you. Stimulants are very, very easy to get addicted to, because when you
Mhm.
start getting that performance, that energy, that heightened focus, it's hard to turn that off. Now, let's get serious. Stimulants are everyday items like coffee, okay?
Yeah.
Nicotine.
Yeah.
However, coffee's not a controlled substance. But coffee, too much of it can impact the central nervous system in a bad way. It could impact your heart in a bad way. So stimulants, again, we hear uppers and downers. Uppers are stimulants. They are uplifting your performance, your enhancement, your brain, your willingness to get up and go, your need to be life of the party, your need to have fun.
Mm.
Right now, there's another social phenomenon going on with sexual acts, and it's called
Mhm.
chemsex. A lot of individuals, particularly gay men, are using chemicals to enhance sexual experiences. They come all night and for days at a time, and really have a lot of enjoyment. And again, that would be a stimulant. That would be crystal methamphetamine or crack cocaine. You need stimulants to let you perform and focus for very long times. However, no matter what you're taking, the crash can cause a lot of problems to your heart, your central nervous, and your brain.
That's I'm so glad you touched on that because that's what I wanted. Two things I wanted to touch on. So you're saying that now these drugs are being used on a higher height because the crack cocaine, it's a drug that you're always going to look for that first high that you got at the
Mm-hmm,
very beginning that you're never going to get again. No
mm-hmm,
one's never going to get it again. But now there is going to is using as sexual, and also you stated that it is being used. What was the last statement you said? Is being used
well, the
for?
last one was sexual conquest, sexual affairs, sexual enjoyment, and on the streets the term is chemsex. So you're
Okay.
literally taking chemicals, and oftentimes, most of the time, they're a stimulant. So you could have sex parties, long-term sex affairs, and you're euphoric, you're very high, you're just enjoying life. You perform for a day or two. I mean, these affairs were lasting 24, 48 hours until the crash comes, and they your inhibitions. Okay, you person, and unfortunately, this use of a stimulant, having sex, is also creating a problem with the increase of sexually transmitted diseases because you're lowering your inhibition. This one, a euphoric experience, the stimulant has you going, and you're not making the right decisions, safe sexual practices or anything else that you would probably more discern. You're not high off a stimulant.
So Ricky, I want to
For
stop you.
most,
I want to stop you because I want you to, if we can, because what you're saying right now is extremely important. If we can move your computer a little bit. I don't know why you're going in and out, and like your voice, your internet is like breaking, so your voice is going in and out. Um, can we set it
okay.
up on something or move your computer a different way or something? Because my next question is extremely important to what I think that we want to hear.
Do you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes,
Am I good?
yes, yes. Yes, yes. So you were saying that of course, any mind altering drug, bad decisions, bad choices. People wake up in jail, like, what did I do? You know what I mean? But for
Mhm.
someone who doesn't take it that far, who doesn't say, I'm not going to go out and I'm not going to have unsafe sex. I'm not going to. What is the damage? What is the damage being done to someone that thinks that I am I am getting high off of these stimulants on a regular basis, but I'm controlling it. What is it doing to the body that may not be visual, but what's happening to the body?
Good question. Just checking, right?
So say something else. And
Okay,
ladies
can
and
you hear
gentlemen,
me?
yes, I can hear. We can hear you right now. Yes, yes,
Okay, maybe I'm not speaking loud. How about that? Am I good in there?
yes. We can hear you very clear now. Yes.
Okay, so some people can use a stimulant casually. Some people can use something every once in a while and keep it controlled. Not many people, but some. But long term use will and can impact your nervous system. It can
Mm,
cause an anxiety disorder, okay? Because when you're no longer using that stimulant and your brain and your body is no longer ramped up, that crash long term is going to be so severe because you have to think about it. Your heart and your nervous system is being so used to being ramped up. When it stops, your body's used to performing at that level. Okay. And then your sensory system and the world,
mm,
when you're encountering the world at the real pace that it is, that can cause an anxiety disorder.
yeah,
The crashing
yeah.
of your nervous system, the part of your brain that's no longer able to function at that same speed can cause suicide ideation. Many individuals who stop using stimulants do have a very high risk of suicide or suicide
Mm,
attempts or suicide ideation. They
okay.
become a different person. Stimulants turn you into a different person if you abuse them too long. And I would also say that your nervous system can get damaged that is so long term. You know, you heart pulsation
Mhm.
or damage to your central system for the rest of your life.
Okay.
Sleeping,
Okay.
sleeping disorders would happen too.
Yeah, you know what? And I'm so glad you said sleeping disorders because the stimulants that we're talking about today is the cocaine, the crack cocaine, the crystal meth, and you mentioned a couple others. Um, any we know that someone can go days without sleep. So the sleeping disorders, and how does that affect somebody, Ricky?
Well, sure. So, for instance, on crack cocaine or especially crystal, you will hear people say, I haven't slept for 72 hours. Stimulant
Hmm.
is literally keeping your nervous system on fire. It's working overtime, days on end. Your
Hmm.
natural response to sleep is shut down because that stimulant took hold of your brain and your nervous system, and you're staying awake for 3.5 days. Okay. And then when that crash comes down and you don't have it in your system, you're stuck. You're stuck in bed. You can't move. You can have a lot of anxiety manifest as soon as 24 hours of that stopping that drug for 3 4 days. And of course, you
Hmm.
want more. Then you want more.
Yeah.
So your sleep, your body's going to get impacted because it's not sleeping regularly. You're not sleeping for a couple of days when you're on a crystal meth binge. You smoke crystal
Yeah.
meth for 72 hours, and now you're supposed to make up for 72 hours of sleep. And then when you try to do that, after about 6 to 12 hours, oftentimes you start wanting crystal meth again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you could
And
imagine that.
no. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you could imagine how tough that is on your nervous system and your heart.
Yeah, yeah. And we're going to talk about the alcoholism and everything at another time. But when you said, of course you want more, immediately my mind went to that phrase. We got when someone wakes up with a hangover, immediately we say, I gotta bite the dog that bit me. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
that means I gotta take a drink so I don't feel,
Hmm.
that how that
Hmm.
that fog you feel when you wake
Right.
up off of the so explain to us, Ricky, what is the difference? So when someone says stimulant, what is the difference between meth and crack? What's the difference?
Okay. Well, crack is powder. I'm thinking of how I can explain this in the layman terms. Crack cocaine is powdered cocaine mixed with baking powder and water, and it's
Okay.
formulated. And it
Hmm.
happened in the mid '80s because the drug dealers had to find a cheaper version of powder cocaine to go on the streets. So to find a
Right.
cheaper version, you had to mix with cheaper materials. Methamphetamine is amphetamine crystallized, so it's a different chemical produced in a different laboratory, so to speak. But crystal methamphetamine is a specialized crystallized version of methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is the driving chemical in your prescription drugs like Adderall. So these individuals on the streets, they find these chemicals and they're in their labs and they're connecting the chemicals and they're making these products that are going to be easy to get on the street, but have the same impact, the same effect. And
Hmm.
oftentimes, you'll have original formulation like cocaine or methamphetamine or
Okay.
amphetamine, but the cheaper versions are crack cocaine and crystal methamphetamine because they're processed easier and easier to distribute. Does that help?
Yes, yes, absolutely,
And,
absolutely.
and I also want to say back to when you were talking about the analogy of hangovers. So oftentimes individuals on stimulants, when they crash, they will go and seek a benzodiazepine, which I believe we'll talk about in a different discussion.
Hmm.
Benzodiazepines are your Xanax, your Ativans, because they are there to treat anxiety. If you're
Mm.
crashing from a stimulant because your nerves are on 4 days, you end up having all this anxiety. Then you want to take a benzo to calm your nervous system. So that's a
Okay.
downer. Now you're chasing downers because you were on uppers and you don't have the uppers. So
Yeah.
we see that a lot. Hmm.
So I want to ask you because back in my day,
Hmm.
a crack user, a cocaine user, a meth user was extremely visual. You can look at someone and psh, this is what's going on. Is it the same now? Because a lot of times last week, the other week, I asked you the same thing.
Hmm.
Some people will say, you can literally look at someone and see, and that's not always the case. That's literally not always the case, especially if someone don't know what we're talking about, what you're educating us on right now. what are some signs that someone may not always rob you or steal out of your wallet or sell everything that they have and still be addicted to crack cocaine, stimulants. Let me just say stimulant. What are some for that grandma that is raising the kids, or the neighbor or the cousin that does not know these things? What are like maybe 2 or 3 things that someone should be looking out for?
Sure. So first off, the classic symptoms are still there. You will see the stigmatic stereotypes. You'll see the crystal methamphetamine users who are missing all their teeth and have sores all over their face because smoking that and inhaling that in does impact your physical appearance.
Mm-hmm,
Crack
mm-hmm.
cocaine, you'll see the same thing. You see people who are, lightweight because that stimulant is frying your nervous
Mm-hmm.
system and frying your metabolism, right? So you're
Yeah.
always running around, so you see that stuff. But you see some people who, if they're jittery, and they're jittery a lot,
Okay.
and you don't necessarily know why because you don't think they have anything wrong with them. That could be a sign. Some other things to think about are the fact that you're not always going to see some signs, but if you see somebody performing for an extra long amount of time, and you know that the human body wouldn't be able to do that on its own,
Yeah.
you may want to put an eye on it. If you have a college student who's in a particularly challenging program, because let's get serious, this is not only your black person in 1987 in the hood. Okay, that is one way somebody can show up using a stimulant, but it's not the only way. You could be upper
Mm-hmm.
affluent of any background in college right now, trying to study to get into medical school, and you
Mm-hmm.
need to have 2 all-nighters in a row, and you're up at Boston University, and you're in the
Yeah.
library.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Ricky, you went out. Okay, he's back. Okay, he's back. You stopped
Okay.
with our college students in the
Mhm.
library. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think I said you could be like at a Boston University or whatever, trying to get through a difficult program. You have to study. You're in the library for 16 hours because you just did a couple Adderall, and the human body may not be able to do that on its own for
Yeah.
let's say more than 6. Let's say 24 plus. You've been in the library all day. If your student, your family member showing that type of behavior, that's something to look into. The estimates right now, Terry, for college students of using Adderall is skyrocketing,
Yeah. Yeah.
skyrocketing at all the major universities and colleges. So,
Yeah. And I'm
you have the individual.
no. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you have the individuals, like you said, who have the stereotypical behavior and appearance, because maybe they're using those street drugs, those street stimulants
Mm-hmm.
like crack cocaine
Mm-hmm.
or crystal
Mm-hmm.
meth. But Adderall's prescribed, Vyvanse is prescribed, and they may be at the house taking care of all the kids and all the business and all the house cleaning and all the things adults have to do, and maybe they're taking that one Adderall, that one Vyvanse to get them a little bit more of a boost. If they're keeping up with way too much than one person probably could, you may want to check into that. And if they have a child, I hate to say this, but I see this a lot too. If you have a
Mm-hmm.
child prescribed stimulant for ADHD, you want to monitor people in that child's life because right now a lot of people want these drugs so bad that they will know that child's prescribed, and you know what? They're going to find out where that child's medications are. That's an symptoms
So
and red flag and behavioral patterns we're going to look for.
so wait. Let me ask you. What you were saying that the child is getting prescribed ADHD medicine, and the parents or the caretaker or whomever is taking the medicine. Okay, okay. I wanted to make sure that we
Mhm.
understood that, and I'm also glad that hit on that. This is no longer a black, brown, poor problem. You know, I'm in plenty conversations where it's like now all of a sudden, there's resources, there's because the white community is now getting, being affected by what's going on. And my response is, let's just be happy, let's just grasp, and let's just hold on to and move forward with is happening now. And what can we do
Mm-hmm.
to join forces to because this is serious. This is serious. Um, Unfortunately, it did take this long, but we're here. So, and thank goodness we have someone like you that can break down what really is going on. You know what I'm saying? Instead of us assuming and guessing, how can we get some help? And with that, Ricky, I want to ask you, you gave us a lot of information this evening. I want to ask you if someone is even, questioning, hey, maybe my loved one is having these symptoms, maybe my loved one is going through this. How can someone, where is the first step someone should even, what is the first step that someone should even take to get help?
Sure. So last week I mentioned detox
You
that can
mentioned what?
appropriately detoxing
Okay. Okay.
for heroin and for opioids. So
Hmm.
we don't necessarily need that for stimulants, but I do believe that if a family or a loved one has an issue, you do want to go into whatever resources you have to get into a drug and alcohol treatment program because there are certain modalities that clinicians specialize for what is known as stimulant abuse disorder or stimulant use disorder.
Okay. Now,
So
I'm
again,
glad you, go ahead. I'm sorry.
we're talking about outpatient, perhaps assessment, intake to group therapy, getting individual therapy, and then finding out what's leading you to use this. Oftentimes, there's some type of pressure in your life, some type of trauma, some type of identity issue that you have confidence about. There's always some type of thing that leads somebody to using a stimulant. So I think that really needs to be addressed in psychotherapy.
Now, in your profession, Ricky, before we're going to ask like a couple more questions, in your profession, can you tell us? Because I can tell you, I done had hundreds of conversations where people strongly believe, can you overdose off of crack cocaine?
I don't think you could overdose in the same sense that people think overdose on heroin, where you take one shot and it drops you dead because there's a fentanyl component in it.
Okay.
But what you can do is you can cause a heart attack. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you can
Mm-hmm.
cause cardiac
Mm-hmm.
arrest. You can cause system shutdown. It's
Mm-hmm.
really something that can happen with the stimulant. Absolutely.
Okay.
So I don't know if the word overdose would be to look for, but we can look for death on the spot. We
Yeah.
can look for my heart cannot take this much, or for individuals who are stealing Adderall from another person's prescription. You have to think a child who has ADHD who's getting a
Mm-hmm.
prescription of, let's say, Adderall or Vyvanse, that family
Mm-hmm.
doctor knows that child. That family doctor knows how much that child can take, that child's body system. When that child gives their friend one, or you're stealing 10 off that child, you don't know what your body can take. One 15-year-old is not the same as another 15-year-old. And just because you're a 25-year-old and you say, oh, well, that's for the child, you don't know how much you can deal with either. So that's how you get into those cardio, arrest problems or those heart attack problems. There's shutdowns because you're using too much of the stimulant and your system's saying to you, no, I can't handle this. Think about how many people who are, Terry, think about how many people who are sensitive to coffee. And that's just
Yeah.
coffee.
Wow, wow. Now you've mentioned Adderall a couple times. Now is Adderall where is that's in the our stimulant section?
It is. It
Okay,
is. And it's a
okay, okay.
prescription drug that's abused. So when
Okay.
we talk
Okay.
about prescription drugs, I'll mention it again because it's growing in abuse. It truly is.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I will tell you, I've seen child psychiatrists reluctant to want to give it to a child because the mother may be in the room pushing it and telling the psychiatrist, he needs this. This is the only medication that ever worked for him. He needs this. And you know, that's a show tell sign that she may be wanting to get that herself. So
Wow. Yeah.
psychiatrists are now they're hip to what's being abused and they're reluctant. And unfortunately, just like prescription opioids last time,
Yeah.
some people still need these things, and these behaviors are going to stop the access for the people who actually need these
Mhm,
things.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. I was thinking the abuse of someone going to the doctor saying this is this prescription I need. That should
Hmm.
be a sign right there when someone come in and say I need
Hmm.
Adderall. I know what I need. So
Right.
yes,
Hmm.
so
Absolutely.
thank you so much. Thank you for that. Thank you. So now
Yeah.
my next now two more questions for you, Ricky. One is where well, I can make these two questions into one, Ricky. Like I said, at the bottom of the screen, ladies and gentlemen, Ricky's information is at the bottom of the screen. Shoot him an email if you have questions that you do not want to ask, here. What I want to ask Ricky is what does you were saying detox, someone can go into detox. What does that look like? What does rehab what does it look like for someone that does not know, may be nervous about going to get help? Is it confidential? Is it something that everyone will know about? What does that even look like?
Yeah. Good question. That's a very good question. Drug and alcohol treatment is, I would say, the most confidential medical treatment you can get. There's so many different points of privacy that the clinicians cannot
Mm,
break. Even when
mhm,
speaking to
mhm,
judges, probation officers, other clinicians, we have five major points of privacy. So when you come into our facility, your information, what drug you're addicted to, what type of treatment you're getting, what background you have, what this did to you. That's extremely guarded information. Again, I would stress that I think that, out of when you think of HIPAA compliance, you think of privacy laws. Drug and alcohol has even more beefed up um, consent to discuss your background, I would say, than most other types of treatment. It's so advanced, Terry, that we actually in treatment actually have professional meetings about consents and to make sure we're not disclosing information. I just had a meeting today with CYF actually about this because
mhm,
CYF workers will call and say, "I want that mother's treatment record to see if she's coming in there. Did she tell you she's using this?" Absolutely not, unless that information subpoena right now. We have no consent to give you that information. Okay, but I'm the one who referred her to you. We understand that. We cannot tell you this because she did not consent to this. We don't have the consent. So I would say it's extremely guarded, which is a good thing if you're
okay.
worried about people finding if you're worried about people finding out, you have this issue because stigma does live. And again, you're coming into a center. Let's look at outpatient. Outpatient's probably the most traditional level of care for stimulant abuse.
Mhm,
I I am a director of outpatient, so you're going to come in, you're going to get your intake, you're going to get your assessment. A clinician's going to identify what level of care you need, and that could be anything from partial hospitalization outpatient, 5 days a week, 6 hours a day of treatment. It could be 3 days a week, 3 hours a day, or it could be one day a week, an hour and a half, depending on the
mm,
frequency of your abuse, how it's impacting you, how much you need. So all that goes into the assessment process, and the clinician, the assessment counselor, will be able to determine that, give you the recommendation, and also hook you up with certified recovery specialist services, somebody who may have overcame crack cocaine addiction. Okay, a lot of CRSs out there have had that back. You're going to get their care if you need it. In most provider systems, you're going to be able to see a doctor. And if you're using anything along with that stimulant, say you're using an
mhm,
opioid, say you're using,
mhm,
together and you're doing speedballs, well, we can look at medication assisted treatment. We can see if we need to get you on Suboxone as well. So it's really specifically tailored. But again, I would stress that for stimulant use disorder, outpatient level of care and its levels of care inside of outpatient, which means you're still living at your house, but you're
Mm-hmm.
coming to an outpatient. That's probably the most common for this type of disorder.
So you
You
said
don't necessarily,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So you said they're living at their house, but but they're what?
but they're able to come to the center. They're able to come to the clinic, as opposed to being at a 30-day rehab or a 7-day rehab. Again, if you're that advanced, you may need that. But
Mm.
oftentimes we see you can treat stimulant use in outpatient settings.
So let me ask you this: would you, being the director of outpatient, are you able to, if the client, because with confidentiality and everything, but if the client says, um, I need you to send someone to court for me. Is that possible? Do you go to court for people? Do you talk to POs, the judge, anything like that?
So a clinician themselves most likely wouldn't go to court. You can get support from a certified recovery specialist. If we have somebody who's able to take you on their caseload, they're a certified recovery specialist. They can go to community with you if you need to go to meetings, if you need to go to court for support. A clinician will definitely talk to your probation officer and anybody you want to, in your favor if you have a release signed, if you have consent, if you
Okay.
sign that you can talk and you can also send medical records, because oftentimes people they get afraid of the therapist talking to the judge or the therapist talking to PO. But what about if you're doing really good in treatment? You want to let them know
Yeah.
that too, right? And
Yeah.
if you don't sign a release, we can't tell them how good you've been doing. So the support's there, and the certified recovery specialist position, which is new, but it's really, really growing in its impact. That would be something that's community based. A lot of people are afraid to go to narcotics or anonymous by themselves the
Hmm.
first time.
Hmm.
Sometimes a
Hmm.
certified recovery specialist may come with you.
Hmm.
So there is support there. There definitely is. It just depends on what you need, and you're going to find that out in assessment. And even if
Okay.
you don't agree with the level of care, ultimately it's your choice. You can say, I don't want to come to partial 5 days a week. How about if I try 3 days for IOP and intensive outpatient? So in my program, we have those levels of care I just described. And we can
Okay.
say, you're using every day according to the criteria we use. We recommend 3 days a week. And you may say, I'm not ready for that, but I will do 1 day a week. Okay, clinically, we're not going to think that's best for you, but we're not going to power struggle with you either. We're going to meet you where you are, and we're going to accept you at once a week. Now, if your probation officer says, listen to them, do
Mm.
whatever they tell you,
Hmm.
that's a
Hmm.
conversation you need to have with the probation officer, and then we're staying away from that. Sometimes POs will say, you need to listen to them. They said 3 days a week, that's what you're doing. But if you're
Wow.
not even under probation, you're not in the criminal justice system, you're that housewife out there who's been abusing Adderall because she needs to keep everything together, you may come in their court and you may find out what works best for you.
Wow. And now, do programs, period, is it a
Mhm.
different level for youth, people under
Yeah,
18?
yeah,
That's my last
yeah.
question. Okay.
Well, and it depends on the provider itself. So right now, my program, we have intensive outpatient level of care for outpatient down to outpatient. We don't have 5 day a week partial. The company I work for, I don't have that in my program.
Okay.
And right now, I was in a meeting with CYF today, and we were identifying in Allegheny County who has inpatient level of care for adolescents. And some places do. Of course, COVID impacted a lot of that. Some places don't. So that's a good
Mm.
question right now, because some companies, some providers offer levels of care for adults, but not children, or vice versa. It depends on what
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
specialty is, what they're able to do. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Now, Ricky, before we close up for this evening, where would you suggest someone go for help, for more question, for more answers? Um,
Mhm.
Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, Ricky's information has been scrolling at the bottom of the page. Please write it down. That's the ad. That's the contact information that will be there every week for you to reach out to him. And as he said, everything is confidentiality. So, Ricky, what do you suggest where someone can go to get from
Mhm.
the first step? Where can someone go to get help?
So, I mean, I'll drop my program. I'll do a little plug in. I mean, I'm the executive director of Pyramid Healthcare, downtown Pittsburgh, and we offer partial hospitalization down to regular outpatient, the three levels I talked about, MAT. We offer CRS, a real strong gamut of outpatient services. But more than that, I would say that you want to make sure that the provider you're going to is licensed by DDAP, which means the Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs. If the facility you are going into is not licensed by DDAP, it most likely is not keeping up with best practices in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I don't know if they're offering the levels of care I just described
Wow.
or if they
Yeah.
are offering them accurately. Okay. So
Yeah.
you really can't take a program without that backing from the Commonwealth too seriously, because there's a lot of regulations that they may be avoiding, and that means your best interest is not going to get served, and the best practice may not be occurring. When you're going into a facility, I would look at people's credentials. I'm a certified advanced alcohol and drug counselor in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Go into a place, ask people's credentials, ask them, how long have you been doing this? What is your credential? You want experts. You want people who
Yeah.
are competent to know what they're doing. Oftentimes, you'll see a mom and pop provider that was just created, but they may not be licensed yet, or they may be licensed for 1 or 2 years, but they keep
Mm.
getting cited because they're not correcting the things that DDAP says you should correct. And the Department of Drug and Alcohol is very thorough. I mean, it's a state bureau. They really let us know what we should be doing. And, a lot of times, mom and pop providers, especially in rural areas, from what I see,
Mhm.
they may not be as quick as a large managed care environment to make sure that the best practice and the citations are correct. So when you're dropping off a family member or bringing a family member to a provider, or if the criminal justice system said, you better go find a place in 2 weeks, even then, you still want to find a place that's accredited, that's licensed by DDAP, and has professional credentialed employees at the site. I would ask those questions. You have a right to.
Wow. And as you said, Pyramid, downtown Pittsburgh, they have these credentials. They've been around. I've been hearing about Pyramid forever.
Mhm.
And I'm and
So, and
I'm glad that you said. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm sorry, and I'll drop something else. I mean, so we're also a certified assessment center. So I had a meeting today about our status. Certified assessment centers mean that when you come into us, we're going to get you assessed within 24 to 48 hours at Pyramid.
Oh,
And there's four others. We got four others in the city. I'll drop their names. They're Jade Wellness. There's
and
Power.
where's Jade?
There's
Where's Jade Wellness?
I think they're out there in Monroeville and Southside.
Okay. Okay. And Power.
There's Power out there in the East End, and oh, there's one more, and it's on the tip of my tongue. But and we have CoForge.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I
So,
just gave you four. I just gave you four.
yeah, yeah. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please, if this is something that you need to learn more about, you have more questions, or you already know, you know, Ricky gave you the information. Again, his information at the bottom of the screen. His email is there. I hope that you took it down. I want to see if if someone did ask a question. Um, dope makes you not. Does dope make you nod off? Wait a minute. True. Okay. Does Coke make you nod? I think that's the question. I'm hoping that I'm answering that. I'm asking that question right by a young lady
Mhm.
named Teresa. True dope makes you nod. Uh, does Coke make you nod? I'm hoping that was the
Oh,
question. Does cocaine make you nod?
okay. If that's the question, I would say that cocaine as a stimulant, when you have it in your system in a strong amount, is going to keep you alert. But when you are away from it and it's out of your system, then you may be nodding because you're crashing. If you're
Hmm.
seeing somebody nod, that could also be a strong indicator that they're using benzodiazepines like Xanax or Ativan or
You
Xannibar,
say
as they
that
call them on
one
the
more
street.
time.
So,
Say that one more time, Ricky. You went out for like a quick second. If you see some after
okay,
Coke, if you see someone nodding, they may be off of Adderall. I
they
think you
may
said
be,
Adderall.
or no, I said Xanax.
Okay. Okay.
They could be using Xanax. Okay, Xanax or Clonopin.
Mm.
So we didn't get there yet. Those are benzos.
Because I
Benzodiazepines
was
are
just going to
anxiety.
say, I keep hearing a lot about that. I can't wait till we get there so we can get educated
Mhm.
about that. I'm so excited about that. Okay, go ahead, Ricky. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so I would say when they're crashing, when the coke is out of their system, you may see them nodding then. Or if they're nodding, say they're in a waiting room, they're nodding in front of everybody, that could be the sign that they're using a benzo, which would be like Xanax or Clonopin. And on the street, they're called Xanny bars. So those
Mm.
are classic symptoms for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your questions. I'm hoping that you took down his information. We will be back next week with more questions for Ricky Moody, the specialist, our guest presenter here at Weston Power for our program with Street Drugs, Myths, and Truths. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Ricky, for your time. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for always sticking and coming around to hear what Weston Power has to say. And with that, we're going to say good night. Take care. And if you have any questions after this is over, and which we always do, we after it's over, we always say, "Oh, I should have asked," or "What about this?" Please either reach out to Ricky or bring him back next week, and he will be able to answer them then. Again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we will talk to you next week. Good night, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful evening. Talk to you later, everybody. Bye bye.